All right, Josh, we had a 2.5 hour Title Tuesday special episode of NXT back in Jacksonville at Daly's Place. Always a throwback when they are there. And we closed with Orange Cassidy and Pac in a intense brawl, an intense fight that ended up with a tombstone pile driver up in the stands. And then Darby cuffing Pac's leg to a barricade or something, and then he had to break free. And he almost got counted out, but he didn't. But he still ended up losing with a small package. And then afterwards, we had this weird stuff again with Darby showing up with he sprayed Moxley in the face when he charged at him, and then he threatened to had some sort of, what are they called? IED, an improvised explosive device. It was a bottle with a rag apparently soaked in something that if he lit it on fire would explode. And then a security guy tackled Darby, and it looked like he almost killed him on the hard surface. It was just chaos at the end. I'm still trying to process, what did Pac do to deserve that, and why is Darby using all these things that normally cowardly heels would be doing instead of just fighting straight up? I know it's cool, it's supposed to be, but I'm a little confused at why we're supposed to side with Darby, other than he's feeling outnumbered, but he's sort of volunteering for that.
Right. Also, you left out the stun gun that he was holding.
Oh God, yes, thank you. Yes, exactly. Yeah, where's Goldberg when you need him?
Right. Yeah, I don't really know what they're doing with Darby here. I mean, I know he's outnumbered, but he's only fighting John Moxley at the show, supposedly. I'm sure there will be involvement. There always is, but
yeah.
What good does attacking them this way do today? That doesn't have any effect on the match next Saturday. They will probably get back at him next week. And can he get through a show without threatening fire in some way?
Yeah.
I mean, the stun gun's stupid. I don't know what they sprayed on him, but that's probably stupid. And the Molotov cocktail.
Taz started coughing.
Well, I don't know if he was just selling it or
I don't either. Yeah.
Just not even smart enough to even use something fake, and they just went ahead and used full-on pepper spray.
Exactly. Yep.
And then for some reason, some random security guard is the hero. Daniel Garcia or somebody couldn't have tackled him. It couldn't have been a wrestler. It's so random. Not a good ending to a show that I thought started reasonably good.
Oh yeah. We'll talk about Joe and Hangman and some good wrestling. I say it all the time, but sometimes stuff with Darby and Moxley and going back to Danielson, it just comes across like a fourth grader said, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool if this happened? Let's do this," without the framing in the kind of adults in the room going, "Okay, if we do this, here's how we have to portray it." We can't laugh at it because Excalibur just does his Santa laugh after every devastating move. Whoa! And it's why are you laughing? It's supposed to hurt. It's not. You're not sitting around with your buddies on a couch smoking pot, going, "Oh, I can't believe that high spot." You're supposed to sell it like it hurts. And he's oh, and no one's acting like this is criminal or out of bounds. And if that's what AEW wants to do, then they're going to do it. But I'm not going to say that I think it's smart. I don't. I think it numbs people to there being any kind of framework where things matter, where there's consequences, or where the person you're supposed to be rooting for is acting in an honorable or defendable way, a defensible way. Adam Kidd in the chat, just this is a good phrase, unnecessarily overindulgent. Yeah, I don't know. Ramen Noodle's going to defend this. He goes, he's one man versus a team full of attempted murderers. Seems pretty easy to understand to me. My comeback to Ramen Noodle, who's a resident defender of AEW nonsense, is sometimes he makes good points, but oftentimes it's just he's being rah-rah contrarian to a fault, I would argue, and this is one of them. Darby he volunteered for this. He interjected himself into it. He wasn't wrestling Pac one-on-one and then he got outnumbered. He walked into it and then he stood by and taunted people to come after him, and he was ready with the weapons. He was ready with the Molotov cocktail. He was ready with the spray. He was ready with the zapper. He entered the situation and then said, "I'm going to be brave, but no, I'm going to blow you up and set you on fire and spray you in the eyes." It's just, it's I don't know.
Right, he was waiting at the exact right spot where Pac was going to happen to wander up during his match that was not Falls Count Anywhere, and there's no reason for him to be up there. He was waiting there with the handcuffs.
Yeah, I mean, how did they know they'd get up there?
I don't know.
Okay. How did they get there? I mean, they're fighting up there. This is my chance to secretly cuff Pac for no good reason and help Orange Cassidy. I mean, I honestly, maybe I missed something. Was Darby just trying to help Orange Cassidy win illegally because he didn't think Orange could win on his own?
I guess because I assume he would have otherwise. Well, he wouldn't have got counted out because he still made it to the ring. And then Pac didn't get counted out even though he was handcuffed. So that spot didn't actually have much effect on the ending at all, really.
But like, what are we supposed to believe? That Darby thought Orange can't win, so I'm going to stand by with cuffs, and or I have cuffs on me. I'm going to improvise and use them because Orange Cassidy has put up a hell of a fight so far in a back and forth battle, even Steven, fighting fair. He can't win on his own. So as a babyface, let me interject myself and cheat on his behalf. No, on it. Like honestly, am I missing? I'm open that I missed something.
No, see, that makes no sense. But also, it's probably not even that. It's just that Darby wants to upset them so he can catch them on fire, which is the thrust of Darby's character at this point is make fire happen on bad person.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can make the case, well, they're so evil and what they've done to Darby in the past justifies anything. And if you want to make that argument, I'd like a set of announcers to do that for me. You know, like let's acknowledge the nonsense and then so we don't just think they think we don't notice, and maybe most people don't notice or care, or not enough people for them to care. But I'd like an announcer to go, what is Darby doing interfering in a match? And then have another announcer go, good point. A lot of people at home are probably thinking that. Here's the explanation. And if it can't stand up to that, then don't do it. So, and here's Ramen Noodle's defense of it. He's saying, Darby is not some white meat honorable babyface. He's a crash out who was put on the shelf by violent death cult, and he's back for revenge at all costs. It's a story that has been told very clearly. So, Ramen, you are saying that what happened to Darby now justifies him interfering in a match, taunting these heels, putting himself in a position to be volunteering to be outnumbered, and then he's going to set off an explosion and with people standing around and zap them, with a taser and pepper spray them. I mean, you don't have to be a white meat honorable babyface to cross a line into just utter nonsense as a character. I don't get it. I mean Joshua, I'm. What do you think? Yeah.
I mean, it's not like he doesn't have what's going to be an ultra-violent match coming up in a week and a half. Anyways, he's going to have the opportunity to light anybody on fire he wants. He doesn't need to be interfering and taunting them further. It's overkill, irrelevant, and not building his character in any particular way. I would rather just heard a promo from him saying, hey, listen, next Saturday, I'm going to light you on fire or whatever he's going to do.
And that's the thing. Like Ramen Noodle in the chat's trying to defend this. But the genesis of this is not, you know what? Darby was put on the shelf by a violent death cult. The rules are off. Everyone's going to cheer for him no matter what he does now. He's going to send a message to Moxley going into the death match. He's in for a fight. That's not why they did this. They did this because wouldn't it be cool if we had a taser, a pepper spray, and a Molotov cocktail? That's cool. It'll look cool. People will be buzzing about it. It'll make a great meme. It'll make a great GIF. It'll make a great clip on social media. It'll go viral. It'll create a buzz. It's overindulgent nonsense to me. If they want to make if the argument is kind of what Ramen Noodle's making, and it's I admire the effort, but that's not the story AEW is telling. So it's supposed to be something we just watch and go, oh, all bets are off because of what happened in the past to Darby. He can do anything he wants in a main event TV match between two people having a hard fight. It's all about Darby and vengeance. When, as you say, Joshua, he has what he wants next week from Saturday, so he doesn't need to do this. So I don't know. Ramen Noodle saying it's easy to understand. People can like it or not like it, but there's nothing to be confused about. I'm not confused. I'm saying I don't think it's going to rally the troops behind Darby that he's interfering in a cool match going on between two wrestlers, and AEW just acts like whatever.
Right,
like
it's not confusing. It's stupid. There's difference.
Yeah. Thank you. Yep. All right. I didn't want to trash that. But
I started off so high. I'm like, I can't wait to get to Wade and talk about how good this show was, and then it just kind of kept going.
Yeah. You're not blaming me for the A topic. You're saying the last few minutes of the show to set us up for this,
right?
That's what I want to be sure. I don't want to think you're when I was in such a good mood, and then Wade, you had to bring up this thing.
Well, they had to bring it up. It's not your fault. They decided to devote the last 15 minutes to nonsense.
Exactly. So Adam Kidd says in the chat, I think what Wade is saying very diplomatically is it's stupid. Anyway, now Ramanu goes, that's fair, but you guys both said you're confused at least 3 times. LOL, I'll fall back now. Don't use our words against us.
Right,
Um,
seriously.
I am confused not at what I saw. I am confused that AEW thinks that this is a good way to sell a match by undercutting the whole principle of when 2 wrestlers are in the ring and a bell rings, that the outcome matters enough that the announcer should not be cheerleading a babyface who's taking matters into his own hands and interfering on behalf of a babyface who now won, but you can't feel good about it because he had help. Pac was panicked about getting counted out, dives into the ring, and he's vulnerable to getting rolled up. It's an unsatisfying finish. And it does get to a core issue that I am hitting on a lot, Joshua, and that is that, I just think in certain ways wrestling has kind of lost its way in terms of what the core structural foundation needs to be for storylines to be effective and make sense without having to resort to tasers and pepper spray and career shortening, high spot spamming, and this kind of nonsense that it's like an undisciplined 4th grader going, wouldn't it be cool if I did this? And there's no adults in the room going, yeah, but there's some ramifications to this, and we can do less and get more out of it if we have some discipline and some structure.
Right. It's unnecessary. All this is all unnecessary because they can just have the match. Darby can come out after and talk to them. They can attack him and he can fight back, whatever. It doesn't have to be this complicated. I'm getting through. I always explain to people, like, Darby is talented. He can go into the ring and have a great one-on-one match with any number of athletic people. But I'm having to point further and further back. Like, no, now you have to go back 4 years to see a decent Darby match where he's not just doing John Moxley. That's nonsense.
Yep.
And it's frustrating because it's right there. It's just easy. And if you need this kind of nonsense, it's on pay-per-view and we can have. You can watch it. The match will be crazy, I'm sure. If that's what you're into, great, you can watch it.
And the idea should be that you're paying to see sanctioned unhinged action where the wrestlers are going to let loose and go at each other in an I quit setting. And instead, we're getting it before the pay-per-view because there is no structure. There are no ramifications. There are no rules. There is no kind of rules of combat, rules of engagement that we sort of honor it as a baseline that is protected so that when you say, guess what? I quit, anything goes. It's a selling point. Finally, we get to see Darby and Moxley really go at it. And I guess their argument would be, well, you won't have security guys tackling Darby to stop him from trying to get Moxley to quit. So, we took something away from you, but I don't know. All right, let's pause and introduce ourselves here, and then we'll get to the good stuff on this show. There's a lot. This is Wade Keller, Pro Wrestling Post Show on Tuesday, October 7th, 2025. We're here to talk AEW Dynamite, a special Tuesday night edition. I think the NHL season starts tomorrow night, so it's I think that's taking over the airways. That has happened annually. At least it's not a dog show like in the 90s and the WWF early Raw days when it gave Nitro the advantage that almost changed the course of the industry. Or was that something else? Maybe did they get bumped for the dog show or something else the first Monday night?
They definitely got bumped for a dog show a couple times. I don't remember if it was that important one or not.
Yeah, I don't know if that was it might have been another reason. But anyway, by the way, on PWTorch.com, over the weekend I put up some of my first Nitro reports ever, and we're posting my first Raw reports ever covering the early weeks of the Monday Night War. So go to PWTorch.com. If you're a VIP member, you get the ad-free version, PWTorchVIP.com. And go to the Torch flashback section, and you can read my reports, which are pulled from the paper copy print newsletter. That's long before we had a website. And you can read what I was writing about in those early shows and just remind yourself what the heck was going on. All right. So fun NXT and AEW head-to-head. We got the PWT Talks NXT crew doing their show at the same time. We ran a poll earlier today asking what show you'd be watching. Let's see, we had 41% saying NXT as usual, 40% saying AEW. I'm not typically an NXT viewer. And then 9% said they'll watch AEW, but they usually watch NXT. And 10% said they'd be flipping between both. So I don't know what that says for Dynamite viewership, but it says NXT. If our Twitter X poll is reflective of anything scientific, that NXT viewership would be down about 9%. But we are here to focus on the show we watched, and my co-host is Joshua White, who covers AEW Collision every weekend. Speaking of PWTorch.com, his reports show up there on the weekends, and he does a great job covering Collision. The ups and downs. Some weeks you're full of hope. It's a primary show with angles, and they're going to have so much to catch people up on Dynamite who didn't watch when they should have. And then you get weeks like this past week where it's like, decent wrestling, one angle, and they did recap that one angle, but But Joshua, it's great to have you here.
Hey, it's great to be here. I love covering Collision because, as far as I can tell, nobody watches it. So I assume people read my reports to keep up with it because they're not watching it. We know that. So
We actually got the numbers in on Collision. I haven't typed up a report yet for the website, but 226,000 people watched it according to Nielsen's figures here, and it looks like let's see. Oh, okay. The male 18 to 34 demographic, Joshua, 5,000 people watched it.
Oh,
that's no. There's a lot of variance when the numbers and the sample size gets this small, but that's I saw the number 5 and I'm like, wait a second, only 5 people watched it, but it's rounded off. You have to add 3 zeros. So 226,000 people overall watched it. In the core demo, 41,000 people watched it, 18 to 49. Not nobody, but not a lot.
Basically nobody.
Yeah, I mean they don't consistently make it a must-watch show, and they pay a price for it. You see Tony get excited about when numbers drop. He's like, all right, we're going to really push it, and then he just kind of throws matches out there again.
It goes up a little bit, and then nothing.
Yep. Mike Good in the chat, who, by the way, said, is he the one who's said, always good to see Joshua on a post show. And then he says, Wade, what do you have against Joshua for making him watch Collision? He volunteered, if I recall right.
Yeah, basically, I volunteered for any number of things.
Well, no, now you're throwing me under the bus again. All right. It was part of what you volunteered for. And
it's true. I did not volunteer for it.
Yes, and yes. And Adam Kidd says, I'm glad Josh watches so I don't have to. Actually, Josh watches so you know whether you should or not on DVR or what to fast forward to that is a can't miss segment or a good match. So that is the service. It doesn't mean reading Josh's report can make up for watching it, but it can also point you towards what is worth watching if you're busy. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Well, we're interacting with the chat. We do that on all our shows. So join us in the chat if you're watching us live on the YouTube channel. We're here live after Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown every week. And then the PWT Talks NXT crew is also live on our PWTorch YouTube channel. And then Saturday after WWE's Crown Jewel, Brandon LeClaire will be hosting the post show right after the PLE goes off ESPN. So join us there for I don't know what time that'll be, around lunchtime, whenever that PLE ends, maybe a little sooner. We'll be live with our post show there, live on YouTube. You can also search PWTorch and subscribe to the PWTorch Daily Cast to get the post pay-per-view shows, along with a whole array of other shows, a different show each day of the week with different hosts, with different foci. And then search Wade Keller to subscribe to the Red Logo Show and get the podcast format for this, along with other content that's not on YouTube. And while you're at it, and you search Wade Keller, you'll see the blue logo pop up. That is our main podcast. Normally, I'd be recording the flagship today, but Dynamite messed that up, so we'll have the flagship later this week. We're still working out the exact schedule. Everything is thrown into chaos because of this. So search Wade Keller, subscribe to all our podcasts for free, and there is stuff you are missing out on, even if you're watching us on YouTube. So we encourage you, implore you to do that. You can also email the show if that's easier for you. Search Wade Keller, or no, don't search, just email wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com if you have comments, questions, rants, whatever. That's also how you can email the flagship. So if you have additional topic suggestions, rants, or questions anytime during the week, but especially in the lead up to our normal Tuesday recording, or this week at a different day, send in questions and comments, and we'll include them on the show a lot of the time. And finally, you can also be a caller. We have the link in my report covering Dynamite tonight on PWTorch and also on our Patreon page. And we invite you, if you want to be part of the show, join the conversation. That includes, by the way, an invitation to, if you attend a show live, I don't plug this a lot lately, but it'd be fun to have people back on doing this. If you attend in person and you want to be on the show to be an on-site correspondent, you can be on camera or just audio only. Drop me a line at wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll bring you on as an on-site correspondent. Always fun to hear what went on in the building off camera. All right. I think that covers the main stuff we have to cover. So let's get back to conversation, and let's talk about Samoa Joe and Hangman Page, because I was looking forward to this when they advertised it. Joe is so good when he gets serious and has time to talk. He has been his whole life. I remember when ROH had their big Rob Feinstein scandal, and I interviewed Samoa Joe about it, and at length. It was like he was he was pissed, like we're building something here and this is nonsense. You could just tell he was like this locker room leader. And if you crossed him, oh boy. And he's never lost that. Like on air, I mean, that's who he is. That's his authentic self. He's going to stand up for what he believes in. And I thought, Hangman Page gave a really good, earnest babyface promo. And then Joe had his comeback. Fans were chanting, Joe. That was a really good segment. It's part of the trend, and I've been critical of WWE for it, so I'll be, sort of critical of AEW for this too. In that the novelty of seeing two wrestlers who fans like facing each other is fun when it's a novelty, but when it's overdone too often, especially at the top of the card, then you end up in situations where fans don't have sort of this common goal uniting them to see a certain outcome, and where they're rooting for one side against the other. Now fans are split, or they're kind of wavering back and forth, and I think you lose some emotional investment and passion when that's the case. That said, if you want to overcome that, have a segment like this where you just want to see, I think people think Heyman's going to win, but obviously, people think that, but Jey Uso won the Rumble. I mean, people should keep in. There's a possibility they do a twist. I mean, they don't have a ton of healthy baby faces or people right now, so who can challenge Hangman? So I'm just making the case. Don't assume anything. They might do a rematch a week and a half later on Dynamite or something and switch it back. But I thought it was a really good segment. Joshua, what stood out to you? What'd you think?
Yeah, so I think last time I was on here, I said that Hangman should open every show with a promo, and this just kind of further cements that attitude I had. And yeah, Hangman, it's always good. He's just earnest and impassioned and like very believable in what he says, which is great. That's what he should be. He seems like he's yelling, but he's not yelling sometimes, which is a little off-putting, especially contrasted to Samoa Joe, who's just cool, calm, and like even more powerful with the way he's speaking. But yeah, I thought they were both excellent. They were both great. They made this match seem more interesting because, to be honest, when they threw it together last week over Hangman dropping his trios title, which is a super important title to Joe apparently, I think they did a good job expounding on how this match came about and making it seem like it is a big deal. And even though, yeah, almost certainly Hangman's going to win, there's almost no doubt about that. But then again, Joe's a former champ and always going to be a legitimate threat because he's Joe. If you put the belt on Joe, that's never going to be like a bad decision necessarily. So there's just a tiny little bit of doubt that they could put it on Joe if they wanted to. And his promo made it seem like that would not even be a bad idea. It'd be a great idea, actually, based on that promo.
A big part of just getting people to watch a match are the stakes high? And boy, did they both value that championship. Does it feel like the wrestlers are speaking truth to each other from their heart, or does it sound scripted and clunky and unnatural? No, they check for this. Check box next to this felt like authentic. Hangman really wants to prove something by beating Joe and keeping a title that means the world to him, and Joe really wants to get this world title back. So it feels sincere, and it feels intense, and it feels like the stakes are high. And then do they feel like stars? And that's one of the challenges for AEW in smaller venues when they're just such a distant number two, and there's some of that excitement of what's to come. It's like being 2/3 of the way through a season for your favorite sports team, and it's not going to be a playoff year. It's a lot less exciting than the stories you tell yourself and talk yourself into in the first couple weeks of the season when anything is possible. And AEW has lost that. They've lost some of that. They have got a core number of people, 100,000 plus, who are buying the pay-per-views. They've got, a core audience that's sort of steady right now. It's hard to fully extrapolate without knowing how many people have switched to watching on HBO Max. But there's a steadiness there, but attendance is down, and it doesn't feel like a company that is on the verge of like closing the gap with WWE. They're just such a behemoth, but they are trying to deliver a niche product, but they don't in these settings with these crowds and the whole, that's more of a big picture issue, but it's hard to come across as a big star in AEW compared to how WWE promotes things. That said, I think they've got the belt on the right guy, and I think for sort of not a emergency challenger, but sort of a we're in between things challenger, and Joe's just a guy who can he's a turnkey guy. He former champ, didn't get a rematch. He's a badass. People like him. It comes across as a match that you want to see. Between a legend like Joe and a guy who's the heart and soul of AEW for the most part right now is Hangman Page. Also, by the way, and I hadn't thought of this till now, maybe everybody else has thought of it and talked about it, Samoa Joe and AJ Styles both in big matches on back-to-back weekends when they, had some great matches in TNA against each other. WWE did a great job talking about Styles' history and parallel tracks with Cena. Maybe they'll do it next week, but I'd like to see something like that, like they did the tail of the tape for Statlander and Tony Storm, which was a nice production thing that you don't really see from AEW, that style of a thing. I'd like to see them do that with Joe. Tony has ROH footage. Let's use it. And he doesn't, Joe and Hangman didn't have parallel tracks back in the 2000s, but I think there's a story that you can probably tell there with Joe's history in ROH. And really build him up and basically make it seem like it's sort of like a debate team in high school or something where you just pick a side and you have to make your best argument for it. There should be a production side of AEW whose job is to convince people that Joe is going to beat Hangman and put a video together that sells that, just to create some suspense. And then of course, the Hangman side don't make it seem like, of course, he's likely to keep it too. Just make it seem like it's a toss up. Tell that story, at least give people a story to believe in. Josh, what else on this?
The other thing I thought is, I know they were chanting for Joe, especially after his initial lines, but I thought he was coming off just a little heelish, like he was going after Adam Page, like a little more than necessary. And my thought was, he's probably trying to quell some of the obvious split that's going to cause by putting two popular babyfaces together. Although it didn't work because he's Joe and he's such a badass, and the crowd's still behind him.
That's a thing. I mean,
but it seemed like he was like consciously trying to go a little heelish to put the crowd on Page's side, and Page got him back on his side of the promo when he closed it out. So I mean, that was good. It bodes well for the match with the crowd not turning on Hangman.
I thought it was interesting. Joe said, you do your open challenge. It's the oldest hustle in the book. You pad your stats with an open challenge where a guy has 10 minutes notice to take you on. That was quite the dig. I don't know if it was meant to be a shot at Sami Zayn or John Cena or something for their open challenges.
I took it as a shot at Cena, but
Mercedes Moné and her open challenge. But I think what Joe did is obviously came on strong. He wants to get in Hangman's head, and I think the scene that I think ultimately this promo painted is that fans are going to believe that Joe isn't going to take it easy on Hangman. He says, I see a pretender. Hangman is going to wrestle that match and beat Joe clean, and Joe is going to very effectively and convincingly make it look like Hangman is no longer a pretender. He's proven to him that he's a champion worthy of that title by beating him. And I mean, I hope it's a straight up clean win for Hangman with a great battle. Don't complicate things and have that be the story that Joe helps, gets up, or Hangman helps him up. Joe pats him on the shoulder, raises his arm, and says, this guy's for real. I mean, I think that is a boost to Hangman's reign and his image. If Joe, who, like you say, leans a little heel, gets a little rough around the edges in his delivery and in his demeanor tonight and his actual words, have Hangman prove to something to Joe at WrestleMania.
Yeah, absolutely. I think even if it's literally just a head nod from Joe would mean so much. Just like, yes, sir. Finish up.
As long as the announcers are there to underline it and draw attention to it effectively and not.
Yeah, that's what the announcers are always doing. So
yeah, in AEW, Sean Plichta says, Joe is a really good promo, and I think he sold the match the best he could. Adam Kidd says, I can see Joe talking like that to the cashier at Kroger's. Adam Kidd says, Hangman is good, but his promo delivery is so unnatural. Nobody talks like that. Do you agree with that?
Like I said, he does seem like he's kind of yelling, so it's a little. I can see it being how someone could see it as a little bit performative, but he's also standing in the center of a ring surrounded by 1,000 people. So maybe that's how I would act if I were in that situation. I don't know. I think he still comes across as genuine and believing what he says, though, which is, I think, more important than that.
Yeah. Now, there's times where Hangman's yelling and I'm just cringing because stop yelling. You don't need to yell. Some people need to yell. He doesn't. And then there's other times he's threatening to kill people and I'm like, stop going there. Like, just stop that. There should be a moratorium on that in wrestling. But, man, he didn't do that. I thought it was, he's talking to a roughly 4,000 people at Daly's place and he's going to rate, but it didn't seem like yelling. It just seemed like he was trying to be heard. So I was okay with that. Andrew H says, Joe is so believable. I like him at the top of the card. I feel Joe has been underutilized a lot of this run. I know he's been hurt and he's been sidetracked with other things, but I don't know. I mean, I don't think Joe should just be the utility guy who you pull off the bench when you're when your roster's depleted. I would have done more with him the last few years if I were AEW. But it is what it is, and he's getting up there in age, and maybe durability wise, they can't lean on him to do a ton. Sean Plichner does bring this up though, Joshua. I feel like Joe just completely overreacted to something that wasn't a big deal last week. Talk about that. That was the spark. Obviously there was underlying tension. Joe has said, he was focused on the Death Riders, and yet he should have been focused on the world title. And I thought they did a good job story-wise. Joe talking about, we were there for you. You wouldn't be champ if not for us, so you owe me. And Hangman's like, it actually beat him to the punch. Goes, yes, I do owe you something, but it ends with giving you the title match. I'm not going to owe you less than 100% performance. Just felt like two people actually somewhat reasonably laying out their rationale and the stakes. But was the spark that started this, did it seem like Joe overreacted to, or did Hangman... Hangman has been accused of being passive-aggressive. Did he passive-aggressively toss the belt on him in a way that felt disrespectful and would trigger something in Joe that's believable?
Yeah, I think Sean is right. It seemed, especially in the moment, like a complete overreaction. But again, Joe is a known hothead. Even the announcers even underline that, so it's true. And then they further expounded upon it this week that it's this kind of situation like where you get an argument with your significant other about one thing, but it's definitely not about that thing.
Right.
This is not about Hangman dropping the belt. It's 100% about Joe thinking, I should be the heavyweight champion. You wouldn't even be the heavyweight champion if it weren't for me. And I deserve a shot. And that is a perfectly A to B logical storyline. Again, the inciting incident, a little silly, sure. But yeah, I think they ended up in a good spot, especially after tonight kind of solidified everything around it.
This feud needed this segment, and I thought they really delivered well. Sean says the way they got to this match was so weak, but I think the match will be super fun. No intrigue at all, though. I didn't convince you, Sean? That maybe, just maybe? Adam Kidd says, Joe blows Hangman out of the water with his delivery. Hangman's really good, but Joe is, I do think Joe's kind of next level because, like I said, just going back to that Torch Talk interview I did with him for the newsletter, I mean, that was before Joe was known for his promos, and I was just like, man, he's got alpha leadership energy, don't cross me, don't piss me off energy. And if he can channel that into promos, and he's made a career out of it. And that's why I've during his TNA days, when he would froth and yell and get bug-eyed, kind of like I'm critical of MJF for doing too, I would be like, I'm always critical of it. Joe is so good when he is calmly delivering his words. It feels so much more intimidating than the hack that needs to yell to get himself over. The Dolph Ziggler school of promos. Joe was so good here because he didn't just flip out for no reason or be over the top because you got to yell in a promo for anyone to listen. This is Joe at his best, and it's what I was encouraging and cheerleading his whole career are nights like this from Joe on the mic.
Yeah, I 100% believe everything Joe said to Hangman Page. Like, if you tell me that's how he really feels behind the scenes, yes, that's probably true because that's how it comes across in his delivery. I mean, not everybody can do that, unfortunately. Even if Hangman is not as good as Joe, well, I mean, most people aren't as good as Joe. That's just kind of how wrestling is.
Yep. Interesting when talking about Hangman's promo style. Mark Biscetti said in the chat, I do think Hangman tries to emulate Magnum TA. It may not be fair, and he may suck at doing it, but it's there. Magnum was not a good promo. Hangman's a better promo than Magnum TA. Magnum TA was a big star in the mid-'80s on the cover of the magazines. He was going to be the guy who replaced Ric Flair. Super sad he was in high-speed car wreck and ended up paralyzed. Worked in the wrestling industry for a lot of years afterwards behind the scenes, but never was anywhere close to being able to wrestle again with paralysis. But he was the chosen one, and he people should look up clips if you don't see him. I mean, there is a resemblance there. But Hangman, I think, is worlds better on the microphone than Magnum ever was. Magnum was fine on the promo, but it was the innate charisma and aura and look, and his belly suplex was fantastic. They started the best of 7 phenomenon with the Nikita Koloff series on TV, which I just loved watching in real time at the time. So I get the comparisons, but Hangman's better than Magnum on the mic, and I think he's a more nuanced, layered person. But it is a more modern era of wrestling too, where you get a little bit more of that too. Were you very familiar with Magnum, Joshua? And have you seen it?
No, I've only seen clips, and I can see the comparison makes sense to me. Magnum to Hangman makes sense to me, but having not actually been around for Magnum's like rise. I couldn't speak to that too confidently.
Yeah. Magnum was kind of the chosen one by Dusty. They teamed together. He was going to be the heir apparent to Dusty being the babyface chasing the title, a Kerry Von Erich without the baggage. And yeah, it's one of the big what ifs in wrestling. I still remember being shocked reading the wrestling magazine about his car accident. I'm like, is this real? Because I wasn't getting, the live coverage. So that's why I found out about it. I don't think I found out about it on TV. Anyway, Derek Mitchell in the chat says, I was a huge Magnum fan from his days in Florida, Mid-South, and Crockett, and I can understand the similarities between the two, but Magnum had an aura that Page doesn't. My initial thought was to push back on that, but I get that, Derek. Magnum had an aura and a presence that sold itself initially more instantly than Hangman. I don't think they're that far apart, but I would put Magnum ahead in aura. But I'd put Hangman ahead in terms of work rate in the ring. Although Magnum was a good athlete, had good moves, but he wasn't considered a top-level worker for his time. He might have grown into it. Hangman wasn't either, by the way. And Hangman hasn't had like the super formal training that a lot of guys had in the international, touring, the pedigree. And he was insecure about that early on in AEW and was kind of known for kind of hitting people pretty stiff and kind of pissing people off early on in his career, including in AEW. He's come a long way, and Hangman just delivers. I mean, pretty much always in the ring against a wide array of opponents. But Hangman is a better wrestler and having better matches than Magnum did, but I don't know if it's fair to compare eras because so much less was expected and was, the baseline of what was a good match back then. It's just different than it is now.
Right, like Maxime Dupri's having better matches than a lot of dudes in the 80s were.
Yes, yep. Very good, fun conversation there. Anything else before we turn the page on Joe Hangman?
No, like I said, that was a good segment. I honestly, I thought it would have been a solid like go home segment, and it took me a second to think, no, there's still another week. So I'm a little curious what they're going to do next week.
Yeah, they might just. Other than that, yeah, that's a good question. Like, what do you do next week to follow up on this? If it's not just like I said, a video package or something, but it's not like there'll be a big angle. They had their face to face. It'd be kind of weird to do a contract signing now when it's been official, right. And it feel kind of redundant format wise. Yeah, I'm not sure. By the way, I mentioned Dusty and Magnum, and this reminded me of something. There's so many things in the past that have been lost in today's just frenzy to produce hours of television to get rights fees, and it's not about house show business anymore. And then promoters and bookers get caught up in social media, and they get this ephemeral sugar rush, dopamine, social media feedback that doesn't really help business and doesn't keep your eye on what really counts. All that stuff that I harp on. One thing that I liked, and it can be overdone, but Dusty did, is when Dusty was in a main event match, as booker, he instructed other wrestlers to mention him on promos. And it was part of why Dusty in the late 80s had a bad reputation. He has a huge ego. He was getting more out of shape. And the people who watch shows like this back then were very anti-Dusty. He's been turned babyface since then, obviously, during his NXT, tutoring days and all that, mentorship days. But I still like that. And what I'd like to see next week, when we talk about next week, is if Renee's interviewing or Alicia Tout's interviewing FTR or Jet Speed, they should either start or finish by talking about Joe and Hangman, or have the announcers go, hey, before we talk about what you got coming up on Collision or on your match, who do you got in this Joe Hangman match? Ask and have other wrestlers talk about it and give their 2 cents, so to speak, on it. Doesn't have to dominate the promo, but it sends a message, especially for a main event that feels a little thrown together, Joshua. It's a little last second. Joe didn't really win a tournament or earn number one contendership status. It's sort of a gift from Hangman. I push back on that a little bit because Joe was an ex-champ who never got a rematch, and he was preoccupied with other things. So I'm fine with it. It's not out of nowhere. But it's sort of out of nowhere relative to some other matches. So I'd just like to see them hammer it home next week. Go the old Dusty route. Have, 5 promo segments where wrestlers are asked or on their own talk about that match and make it feel like, yeah, this is a buzz. Everyone's talking about it. I mean, the week leading up to the Super Bowl, who do you got? Do that.
Yeah, you'd assume the Death Riders would have some opinions on Joe and Hangman.
Yeah, really.
Having been fighting them for the past 6 months, they might have some insight into this match and a preference on who's going to win. And yeah, everybody in the company should be paying attention to what's happening with the world title at any given time. That's not a bad idea. And also, maybe I missed it. Did they show any clips from that opening segment throughout the other 2 hours of this
Ooh,
show?
I
I
don't
don't
think so.
remember. And
I
they
don't think so.
definitely should have, because it was, to me, the highlight of the show.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, you do it, one, because not everybody watches every minute of the show. You do it, number two, because it sends a message to viewers. This is important enough for spending more time on it. That doesn't mean just replay it. It means have the announcers reflect on it. Oh my God, it's an hour later. We're still buzzing about that. And Bryan Danielson should have something. Hey, here's something that I was thinking about during commercial break about that segment. And you have a key talking point, and he underlines something and says, when Joe said this, did you see how Hangman reacted? Have a talking point to this. Add some layers. Don't just move on to the next thing and go, hey, now it's time for high spots and ho 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 from Excalibur when someone goes through a table. I don't know why that irritated me. It always irritates me, but especially tonight.
Well, a lot of people went through tables tonight, so
that's probably why.
Probably heard it several times.
Yeah, and he does it for other moves too. Like Bandito's getting power suplex. Oh ho ho! It's like it's not just. You're not sitting around with your buddies on a couch reacting to a high spot. You're trying to sell the impact of it, not laugh at it. And yeah, so basically, yeah, you review it, one, in case people didn't see it, two, to underline that it's important. You send that signal. Three, to add more insight to it and add that emphasis. And it's a smart thing to do, and you're not going to lose viewers, especially if you have interesting commentary and you don't belabor the point or talk too long about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Derek Mitchell says, Wade, that's a good idea. You don't see that type of booking anymore. Make another wrestler discussing the title match. Absolutely. All right, so we had Kyle versus Kyle earlier this year, and fans are chanting, let's go, Kyle. Tony Khan liked that, by the way. He thought that was really special when that happened last time. So they book it again, Kyle versus Kyle, Kyle Fletcher, Kyle O'Reilly, TNT title match. The crowd didn't get distracted by that. They didn't derail the match with let's go, Kyle, like silliness, Joshua. I was pleasantly surprised it didn't dominate the match.
Yeah, I was somewhat proud of the crowd because you may remember that first Kyle match had happened on Collision, and I had the pleasure of typing down all the different Kyle chants and increasing irritation during that. And then you may not remember this, but they were in opposite each other in a tag match, and at one point they both tagged into the match, and they started doing that chant. So Fletcher tagged out, which I thought was a great heel move. So he could do the Kyle chant. Yeah. And then you saw this match booked, you knew exactly why. They wanted to do Kyle versus Kyle chants, and Kyle O'Reilly was playing into that in his promo leading up to it. So my first instinct was to be proud of the crowd for not buying into it. My second instinct was generally the crowd was actually not into a lot on this show, which is so crazy that they were in Jacksonville.
Yep, I agree.
Like the crowd seemed like really flat, even for some of the bigger moments. And I figured the Kyle versus Kyle thing, well, that'll get them up if nothing else does. And it did not, except for just in very short instances.
Any theory or on why? Because there were multiple, like there were times I note in my report, like crowd chants. I'm like, oh, the crowd started chanting this. And I'm like, wait, it was a few fans and it petered out. Like, this is awesome. It was like, this is awesome. This is okay. Well, whatever. Like there's a lot of Joe. Like, so it's not like it's 90 degree. I don't think it was like 90 degrees or anything like that where the crowd was just exhausted.
I don't know. It's in Florida.
Oh, well, yeah. It's in Florida, and yeah, it was like almost 90 degrees in Minnesota last week. So I mean, the climate's crazy right now. So I don't know. Adam Kidd says it's because it was a weak card, Joshua. I
mean, that's an argument you can make, but like Pac versus Orange Cassidy, that's a good match. That's a decent main event. The crowd should be up for that, and they were there.
AEW fans who are part of the core group buying tickets, they're the ones left. The ones who look at that on paper and go, that's a really good match. Who AEW has lost are the ones who look at that and go, why should I care? Pac has no personality that I can recall. Orange Cassidy is kind of a mid-card gimmick guy. That's what some people are telling themselves. That's what critics say about them. Well, it's AEW's job when that's going to be your main event. Get people excited about your freaking main event. Like, Orange Cassidy decides he's going to hang out with, was it Alicia or Renee? Whoever it was afterwards, and just kind of, hey. And it's a fun little bit, but like, I want, like, you're in the main event against this badass Pac who's making his return. Get us a little bit more excited about it with some stakes, some framing, and I don't know. I felt they could have done more to make, and again, I don't know if that would affect the live crowd reaction, but I was just, when they're doing ring introductions, I'm like, it's a bad habit. AEW does it more than WWE these days, where they don't build up the main event. It's almost like they don't want people to know what the main event is because they think they won't stick around. They're better off not telling them.
Yeah, well, you're not wrong. I didn't know this was the main event either, and I watched the show. In fact, you may remember this. I forgot that it was on Tuesday this week, first of all. And then
Mhm.
around 10 o'clock tonight, I remembered, oh, yeah, it's 2.5 hours. Because at first I'm like, this is some overrun they've got
Yeah,
going. And
yeah.
I'm like, no, that's right. No, it's extended. So they didn't really advertise that portion very well, A. B, and they didn't, they may have at some point said that that was the main event, but they never explained why that should be a main event. Like,
Yep,
those two
exactly.
have a history, sure, but they don't have a recent history. There's no reason for them to be going on like that. And even though like I said, I've seen those two have good to great matches in the past. There's nothing on the line here, and it ended because Darby got involved randomly for no reason, which is
That's
a very WWE way to end a match.
Yeah, sometimes there's a match and you go, why is this match happening? And you realize they backed into it because of what they wanted to do afterwards with it. And so they didn't get around to then going, well, if this is just a portal to get to the what we do in the post match after the match, we still need to come up with a reason this match is happening, a presupposition for it happening that isn't just, well, it's just there to fill time until we get to the post match angle that's building up the pay-per-view. I mean, I think one of the things that would be best for Tony Khan's business in terms of making his booking and the presentation more effective would be for him to I don't say no longer, to spend as much time thinking about not match quality and whether there'll be people on the internet going, great match on social media. That's a great match. Tony thinks it was a great match. Give your time to that. That's fine. That's not a bad thing. But there's this whole other side of things, which is what about people who don't care? They don't know they care about match quality. Obviously, you get pulled when wrestlers are good at their craft. You get pulled in emotionally, but they're not thinking about star ratings. They're not thinking about cool high spots, and that's not what they want to do. Is get pulled into rooting for a wrestler to win and thinking the stakes are legit and real. Make sure that side of things is covered too, and he just doesn't cover that enough. And if he spent at least half his booking energy going, okay, we got a good match on paper, it's going to be good. That's self-evident. Why should somebody who isn't thinking about match quality, they're tuning in to see their favorite wrestler, one of their favorite wrestlers beat a wrestler they don't like? We need to tell that story, and we also need to explain what the stakes are. And he just doesn't do that often enough because I think he does just focus way too much on, oh, look at this lineup. That's going to be a good match. 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 And that's actually how Collision gets booked a lot of weeks. I just, if he took as much time after that to go, okay, now how do we get people who aren't caring about match quality to be invested in this? I think it would help. There's no drawback to it. There's no negative to adding that to the mindset and then the delivery of the message on why you should watch.
Well, yeah, not only that, like he could take almost 100% away from his focus from making good matches. Because if you look at the roster he has, if you just start putting wrestlers together, you're going to automatically get good matches, even if you don't want them for some reason. But if you start with like an interesting story and a developing storyline that's leading to these matches, people are going to be more invested. A, B, the match will end up being better for it.
Yep.
And like I was saying, with that roster, you're going to just end up with good matches, just flipping coins.
Yes, I very strongly feel that how good a match is something that should be rarely talked about by anybody on television because it's self-evident. If it's a and you also, it can work against you because you can have an undercard match that's really good, but it turns out your main event match, the one that's going to really draw money, it's not your best wrestlers. And you can kind of back yourself into a corner where you're a promotion that's simply catering to people who are checking Cage Match for star rating averages, as opposed to the masses who want to be pulled in emotionally to a story with high stakes and outcomes that matter, that are built up to matter, and then afterwards the ramifications are strong. And people that they relate to or connect with or look up to or look down on and want to see humiliated or put in their place, that sometimes is going to line up where it's not a great match. And you don't want, as a booker, to condition your audience to think, well, now that pay-per-view sucked because the match that had all the hype and all the build and it was just this meeting of two huge stars, but it was only 3.5 stars, so it sucked. Like, that shouldn't, in the end, AEW, because like you say, Joshua, their roster is going to have a lot of good to great matches. That's a given. You've assembled a roster. Now tell stories, make the stakes seem high, make them seem like stars, and don't structurally have things that just make absolutely no sense, like attempted murder and setting people on fire. I mean, I know they want to kind of own what they did, and Hangman's like, in my time here, I've been this and that and an arsonist, and the crowd laughed. I mean, that's a reason you don't do this stuff, because it's a laugh line. Like, the whole point, like I say it all the time, people are like, oh, the heel face thing, not in WWE, the announcers, why should they make a big deal out of heels cheating when the fans don't care? And I'm like, well, you got it backwards. The fans don't care because the announcers don't make a consistent big deal out of it. That's the world you create and the story you tell is how fans are going to react to things. Or at least history shows that up until the last 20 years when they lost their way. So the same thing with this, like, you can actually, it's hard to get fans to care about what you're doing when you go so far to make up for the lack of structure and being able to do things more efficiently, that now they laugh at the most hardcore angles. Like, the reason heels cheat is so they get heat for doing it, and the baby faces have a reason for revenge. The reason you set somebody on fire, if you ever do it, is the ramifications are huge. It's not for a stunt that then people months or a year later are it's a laugh line. I mean, I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, well, nobody remembers that Darby actually set John Moxley on fire at the last pay-per-view.
I know.
Like, he succeeded.
Yep.
It happened.
Yep.
No effect. Nothing.
You just show up for it, get your paycheck. Hey, welcome, Darby. Your check's in the drawer. It's in the locker. Like
a couple of bottles and some gasoline back there. Get to work.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? That's why I always say it's like a fourth grade's booking it. Because fourth graders just want cool. They're thinking about cool stuff. They're not thinking about storyline integrity and follow-up. They just want to see something cool. You need adults. And I'm not against some of the stuff that they're doing. I'm against the framing of it, the follow-up of it, and also the frequency of it. Truth be told, it's not my favorite thing, but I can absolutely respect it if it's used in a way where you actually get something out of it and it fits within the overall structure of the way stories are told. These are just exceptions, and there's just a complete disregard for ramifications of that match. They're just doing it. It looks like they're just doing it for the OMG aspect of it in that kind of dopamine rush moment.
Right. Like, if Tony Khan wrote The Sopranos, like, everybody would die every season.
Yes.
Storylines developing and reasons for people getting whacked.
Yeah.
It would just happen at the end of every episode.
Or you'd have like the principal of the school or the assistant principal who didn't like the principal would go skydiving, and the principal would like sabotage his parachute. He'd jump out of an airplane, and the principal would almost die, but fortunately he'd land in a swimming pool or something. But then he'd just show up to work the next day, and everyone would just show up to work and it'd be like, oh, you shouldn't have tried to kill me. Yeah, but what's on the agenda for today for our teacher meeting? Like there's things that are so out of scale that you can't just go back to business as usual. Like, there should be a certain scale to what's allowed, and when something's out of that normal scale, like setting somebody on fire, you don't pretend it didn't happen. Adam Kidd in the chat says, Stone Cold Steve Austin didn't put on 5-star type matches, but I couldn't take my eyes off the screen when he was on my TV. Yeah, Steve's matches were phenomenal. He was a great worker, but he wasn't a high spot spammer, and he wasn't, by the time he made it big, I mean, if you look back at his earlier work, the flat back bumps, his athleticism was fantastic. He was, he was not a peak athlete at the time that he broke out as a big star. He wasn't at his peak of athleticism. That came earlier, but that happens a lot in wrestling. A lot of wrestlers say it. There's a style that you wrestle to become a star, and then there's a style that you wrestle after you become a star to make the most money for the longest time possible, because you're over. You don't need to do all that stuff. And that's what's been, so frustrating, as people lament Kenny Omega's career being shortened. And now Will Ospreay going, oh my God, this is catching up to me. I'm in my early 30s. Yeah, that's what everyone's been telling you for 8 years. Well, you're, so excited about all these match of the year and 5-star matches and all that stuff. You're spamming finishers and taking bumps that are damaging your body, and now you're going to have a shorter career. Duh. Right. It sucks. I mean, I feel bad for him, but don't act surprised when literally almost everybody who's been through the path you're on has been telling you. It's like Mick Foley, oh God, this is a lot harder to be old and broken down than I thought. Yeah. Yeah.
Too bad nobody said anything.
Yeah. And that's why I'm just not, I enjoy the matches, but I don't celebrate in the same way that some fans do when wrestlers are clearly taking bumps that are hard on their brain, hard on their back, hard on their neck. When there's, as Stone Cold showed and so many other great wrestlers showed, you can pull a crowd in, and Roman Reigns does it. I mean, there's so much like, not everybody has Roman Reigns' aura. When you talk about aura, where you can get away with only having, doing a few moves and taking your time with everything. But, Will Ospreay has some of that. I just wish he would have picked his spots better. Anyway.
Right. Like, my favorite Will Ospreay match is his match against Hangman at whatever was right before All In, and that
Mm-hmm.
match had some high spots, but for the most part, it was just a straight up in the ring wrestling match. Like, it was
Yep.
better than the match where he did a flip off of the cage and attacks or whatever.
Yep. Yep. Okay. This all started with Kyle versus Kyle.
Oh, right.
So let's kind of circle back to that. Kyle Fletcher wins in 13 minutes. There was, we talk about, it's obvious Hangman's beating Joe. It was obvious Fletcher's beating Kyle O'Reilly. I mean, Kyle's a tag wrestler.
Because it looked like O'Reilly was beating him for almost the whole match.
Yeah.
Which I don't understand 100%.
It's a formula that is a courtesy to wrestler egos, or that doesn't serve the fans actually ultimately, or in big picture the promoter and the wrestlers, for in terms of drawing money. Kyle Fletcher's a rising star. Kyle O'Reilly had 5 years ago he got pushed in NXT as the guy and it didn't work. It just, he didn't quite have that. So he's a utility guy. Fletcher should kind of dominate, at least get 70% of the offense, tell the story that O'Reilly's resilient, and maybe Fletcher gets a little arrogant and, gets a little ahead of himself. So, and the announcers tell that story. That should be the the cadence of the announcing should be, Fletcher's a heavy favorite. Look at him. He's dominating. Oh, he's getting a little full of himself. That's one of Fletcher's shortcomings. Don Callis acts like, no, it's not. He denies it, but then O'Reilly takes advantage of it. O'Reilly gets a run. I mean, there's a formula to it, but this idea of, let me give you 70 to 80 to 90% of the offense because I'm beating you in the end and you're a veteran, I respect you. This isn't about who picks up the check. It's about trying to draw money and sell tickets.
Right. Because that serves nobody. Like, that doesn't make Fletcher look better. It makes him look worse. It makes O'Reilly look better, I guess, but they're not doing anything with O'Reilly. They haven't done anything with O'Reilly. I like Kyle O'Reilly, but he's not going anywhere. He's not doing anything. He's not in any important matches or competing for any titles.
Yep.
He can look good. He's a good wrestler. He will look good if he gets 50% of the offense in an 8-minute match.
Yep. I would have made this a showcase for Fletcher, and O'Reilly just goes back to doing what he was doing. And sadly, I think the match was booked because they were hoping Jacksonville would do "Let's Go Kyle." Kyle sucks. Although that doesn't even make sense because they say that about one person. So it's anyway. So speaking of matches that were one-sided or weren't one-sided and should have been, Mercedes Moné and Lacey Lane.
Right.
The open challenge concept works if you're telling a story, like John Cena, Kurt Angle. That was an open challenge, but like where there's a young star and you believe in them and they're going to be around afterwards, and they put up more of a fight, and it was Action Andretti, beat Jericho. It was like it was wasted, and they learned very quickly. Was it next week? Andretti said, "Hey, he said something effective. Women need to know their place, or put your woman in her place." He said something like totally just what? Like, you're a baby face and you're telling you're I don't know. And I know people were like, "Oh, geez, that wasn't good." And it was a wrong, Jericho's trying to give back, but he gave back to a guy who was like super exciting, but just didn't have it. And I mean, years later, it's pretty apparent he's just a lower card utility guy who wasn't ready for it. If you're going to do an open challenge, either have it be somebody who people believe can win, like WWE's doing with Sami Zayn right now, for the most part, or have it be somebody who's going to be around because they put up a fight. Like, Lacey Lane got in so much offense against Mercedes. She should be all elite and now in line to get some matches that might lead her to a title match again. You shouldn't have Mercedes in 9 minutes selling that much to a local nobody in the eyes of almost every Dynamite viewer. It defines down Mercedes, who's walking around with 13 or 18 or 20 belts, and now some nobody who wasn't good enough to land on the radar of Tony Khan to get hired for ROH, much less AEW. She's taken Mercedes to the limits. What's the point of that other than the in the moment, OMG, I didn't, she could win. They're trying to tell that story, but there should be a follow-up, Joshua, to make it worth Mercedes sacrificing like that, right? And maybe there will be.
Yeah, I don't think there will be, and I don't think this was worth the time they spent on it.
Yeah.
I mean, when they announced this match, I thought, oh, this could be interesting. A surprise opponent. There's a lot of free agents out there that would be like an interesting pop-up. Even if they just pop up and lose and go back to wherever. You can name like 8 different female that would be more interesting than Lacey Lane, who is not even bad, but she was a forgettable half of a women's tag team champion like 2 years ago. And apparently she had a match on ROH like a couple weeks ago. I mean, fantastic. And they made it out like she was like so related and part of Florida, but I don't think Florida really knew who she was. Took me a minute to remember who she is or was.
Wow. Yeah.
At which point I didn't think she had an 8% chance to win, maybe, if I count out, if she's lucky. I mean, so yeah, 9 minutes. Again, that's a waste of 9 minutes of my life.
Yeah. It was a good match, but and I'm glad. Good matches can be interpreted a lot of different ways. It was a match that if Lacey Lane had been built up on AEW proper or had been a rising featured star in ROH, that there was a buzz and the announcers were like, this oh my, like there's a way to frame it where it doesn't feel like here's somebody off the street who answered the open challenge because we happen to be in Florida. And that was the story of the vignette. That was the story of the presentation of her. If it was something, if they had framed it as here's somebody who's really been making waves in ROH and they told the story, showed enough, I don't know, they had enough to go on to tell that story. And then you want to have faith that they actually will follow up on it too. And I mean, like that's why I say maybe they will. Maybe this is the beginning of something, and this will actually be not worthy of criticism, but this is actually their way of signaling, yeah, we actually think she's good enough. We're going to actually not just have her disappear for a year before she shows up on AEW TV again.
Right, you're not wrong. Like, this was a very competent in-ring performance. It was perfectly good. It would have been a perfectly good match. And I'll give him even a little bit of credit for doing the 25-second intro video instead of just her coming out completely cold. So that's something. But still, it was, as Adam Kidd might say, a match that happened.
Yeah, Adam Kidd in the chat goes, it was a match that happened, Wade. There's a lot that AEW does that is sort of this derivative, half-formed version of something that was done in the past that worked and had a lot of other things that made it work. They're also copying things that never had nuance or sophistication. They're just copying them because it was done, and so we're going to do it again too. There's a lot that AEW does well, don't get me wrong, but I just, the hope with AEW is that there would be a sense that they observed a lot of things that were going on that in the past 10, 15, 20 years that were undisciplined, unfocused, overdone, and turn directions. I still remember talking to Gabe Sapolsky for ROH launch. I tell the story semi-often, and I'm like, you're going to go to ECW Arena? He's like, we don't want to go there, and we don't want to look like we want to be we don't want to look like a derivative follow-up to ECW. We're trying to relive past glory. We have a different vision in mind, and we're going to do things differently, and we're going to shake hands beforehand, not hit each other with canes. We're going to have women wrestlers are treated with respect instead of just out there in skimpy outfits being treated horribly by a rabid male audience who hates all the women who said no to them or they could never get. Like, that was ECW's whole marketing, overtly, pretty much. They want to do everything differently. Eric Bischoff tells this story, and I think there's something to it. He told me in a 5-6 hour Torch talk I did with him 20 years ago. Not quite, but that he just sat down with a legal pad and wrote, here's what Raw does well, and here's what we can do to be different than them. It was like, how are we going to be different? And there were things Tony Khan definitely did in AEW that were different than WWE, but he didn't go, but what things did WWE, ECW, and WCW do that are tired and played out and feel like they just lost the novelty aspect of doing them? And then that's why I was hard on the whole lights out, lights on gimmick thing when they first did it. I'm like, it just was a warning sign. It was going to be a promoter reliving his past by going back to old things instead of doing new ideas. The press release and things that Cody said and others said made me think this is going to be different. And too often it turned out not to be. And part of it is open challenges. They don't fully execute it where you think anyone sat down and really had a discussion about what are the strengths and weaknesses of past presentations of open challenges. And let's make sure that, this is one people will be talking about for a long time instead of it just being a crutch. Same thing for $500,000 matches. Like, why do people not normally win cash when they win? And why don't they always advertise it? What makes a match? I mean, that was another talking point from the show, but why does somebody get a chance to win $500,000 in a match? And why do some matches have cash prizes and others don't have them advertised? Are people on salary and on occasion you get a winner's purse? Like, they don't think that matters, but there's so many things like that, Joshua, that they do that they don't address and don't explain, that suddenly it just feels like, well, all I care about now is someone going through a table, because nothing makes sense otherwise.
Yeah, it is lacking structure in that way. Like, the Bucks lost their money gambling, so they banged on Tony Khan's door. That's why they're getting a money match. But why did they get the first money match where they got the money?
Yep.
And Yeah, and also,
If it was the undercard guys, I could get it.
Yeah,
like,
they could use the money, I'm sure.
Yeah, like you're not a multi-million. I mean, like, it's kind of demeaning where wrestlers are like, oh, please let me be in a match where there's $50,000 at stake, and it's like you want to give the impression that's for most people on national television, that's not a big deal to them.
Right. You would like to think these are superstars. These guys are getting lowercase s superstars. They're getting paid millions of dollars to compete at the highest level. It makes it sound like they're scraping by and they need extra money in addition to what you're paying them because you're not paying them enough.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, by the way, what do you think of the Young Bucks right now, Joshua? And they're banging on Tony Khan's door, wanting Nick needs money. Matt says, I sold sneakers so that we could buy tickets to sit in the crowd, and then they sit with two kids in between them who aren't their kids. Did they explain that?
No, the announcers questioned who the kids were and how they got the tickets, but there was never any explanation about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I give the Bucks credit for doing something. They're have characters. Things are happening every week. It's moving forward. Apparently, Nick has a gambling problem. I can relate to that. My wife's at the casino right now having a gambling problem. Like, I get that. But like, that's not necessarily relatable to everybody. And I don't know where they're going with it. Apparently, they're going towards a match with Jurassic Express. Yeah, which is fine. Like, stop me if you've heard this before. That'll be a good match, right? I mean,
right.
No. But it's $400,000 or $500,000 because Nick lost all their money at the casino. So yeah, the Bucks characters, again, they're not great. They were never great character works. They've had moments where I've been like, oh my god, this is actually going to work. They're going somewhere good. Like, this seems like BTE outtakes mostly, and then they will probably show up again and have a great match in a week and a half. But other than that, it's not doing a lot for me.
Yeah, I mean, there's a tone to what the Bucks are doing that feels like it's for being the elite. You know, it's like the kind of ironic, meta, I don't know, self-referential type humor that works on a YouTube show. And now they're kind of bringing it to this, but I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I match your sentiment. They're doing something. They're putting themselves out there in a way where as heels they're showing up. It's sort of the knee slap and haha for the fans sitting at home on the couch. Oh yeah, the Bucks, look at them. But if you think about it, it doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't know, an overstatement, but it doesn't make much sense what they're going through and how Tony Khan's reacting. Like Derek Mitchell says, why would Tony Khan put the Bucks in a $500,000 match after being Spike Pile driven last year around the NFL draft? There's too many holes in their stories. But Sean Plichta says the Bucks are more fun now, and I do like the match against Jurassic Express. But yeah, Derek says, so we're to assume the Bucks don't get paid. Like, do they not make money for showing up at Dynamite? Like, where they have to sell sneakers to get tickets? I mean, sometimes you're going for a laugh line that doesn't make sense.
They were EVPs, so I assume they made more, but they're still contracted wrestlers, so they have to wrestle every week, and I assume they still make way more than I do.
Yeah. So, like so many things in professional wrestling, nobody puts things through the filter of, does this make any sense? Is this consistent with the way we tell stories? What are the questions somebody at home is going to be asking? Do we have an answer for those? And if not, can we clean this up so that it doesn't just feel like, again, it's like Sugar Rush booking. Oh, this would be funny if we do that. Okay. It's more than that. It's more than the Sugar Rush of High Spot or This Is Funny or That's Wild with Fire. It needs to fit within a context of something if you want people to get engaged, get immersed and engaged with what's happening. And they just don't do that. Sean says, they're still doing comedy stuff that Tony said they would never do. They're doing WWE stuff from 5 years ago. That's another thing, too. It's just so much of AEW isn't a counter program to WWE. It's just, we do everything WWE does because we want to appeal to everybody, but then on pay-per-view time, our matches are better. That's their philosophy, right?
Yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, that is the philosophy. What's weird is that they're doing stuff, like Sean said, that WWE did 5 years ago, that they're not even doing that much of anymore.
Yeah.
But now AEW is doing it. Like, I guess it's counter-programming, but this is worse than what they're doing. That's not the good kind of counter-programming.
WWE moved away from it for a reason, and now AEW is like, yeah, we'll pick up where they left off. Not that they don't do it at all, but Yeah. All right, we got a caller. Bono has called in on audio. What's up? Welcome. Okay, that's what I thought. I think he clicked a link to listen, but thought he was being a caller. So anyway, that's fine. Okay. Elsewhere on the show, we had Okada and Takeshita against Brodito. Kind of a bummer that for the finish, Takeshita was going to like run out of the corner and Okada hadn't tagged him yet. And so he had to like back up into the corner again and wait for Okada to force tag himself in. I don't know if Okada was late or Takeshita just, was offsides, 5-yard penalty. False start, I guess would be the better term. But yeah, it was unfortunate. That distracted from things. I mean, that should be something you just don't screw up. Like wait for Okada to hit you and Okada shouldn't make him wait that long. So that's a bummer. Obviously, though, this match was, double Jeopardy eliminator match. Did they ever explain what that means, or did they just assume everybody knows?
They did. They actually half explained it once when Renee was interviewing the Don Callis family in the back. Don kind of explained it a little bit, but I didn't understand it. I didn't get what they were saying. At some point, Excalibur explained it in actual terms, like, hey, if these two win, they get a tag title match. Otherwise, whoever gets the pin on the other team gets a match, gets a Cosmic match. Now, just because they explained
wait, what's that last part?
So if Brody King had pinned either one, he would get a shot at Okada's title. Or
Gotcha. Yep.
Which, again, they explained it, but that doesn't mean it makes sense. It's still...
Well, because when you if it's a double Jeopardy eliminator match, now because Okada and Takeshita won, does that mean now Brody King and Bandito can never get a match against Okada for his unified title?
Well, that's what they mean when they say eliminator historically. Right. But I'm guessing, no, that's the double Jeopardy part. It's because they can, because that's what double Jeopardy means. No, I'm
fine. That part, I was just like, okay, so you if you win, you get something, but if you lose something tangible also, and that didn't seem to be underlined.
No, I mean, it could have easily just said, hey, if Brody or Bandito get the pin, they get a shot at the title. Otherwise, if Takeshita and Okada win, they get a shot at the tag title. Easy peasy. You don't need a fancy name and a graphic. You just say, hey, this is what happens. This is what the match is.
If I never hear Eliminator again, I'd be happy.
Yeah, it's not a great thing.
Yeah. So, but this match was set up, if you're paying close attention, all you're doing is waiting for Okada and Takeshita to argue. Have a disagreement. Have something happen. It makes sense that it would happen. Like, I mean, they are not getting along. Okada's got an ego. Takeshi's trying to be a good soldier for Callis. It's not that it doesn't make sense. It's just, very predictable that that's going to happen. The unpredictable part is, would it cost them the match, or would they overcome that? And in this case, I don't know if you even overcome is a word. Okada just stole the glory. Who did that last night? Did somebody do that last night on Raw? I feel like somebody... Was it LA Knight? Anyway, stole the glory. I mean, tagged himself in and hit his finisher before Takeshita could hit his. And I mean, that it's fine, and predictable isn't always bad, but it did sort of validate to people, this match isn't really starting until there's a disagreement of some kind with Okada and Takeshita, because there's going to be no finish until that happens.
Right. Well, at least it happened right at the finish. Like, it was over right after that happened.
Yeah.
Now the problem is, now they're facing Brodito at the pay-per-view, and it's going to be the same thing. Like, when are they going to have their little hiccup? And they're not going to win the tag titles, because theoretically those two should win the tag titles. They're both amazing.
And I'm not, just because we can call it. I mean, sometimes teams don't get along in sports, there's bickering and they're more likely to lose. I mean, that is a sports story, and you can tell it, and I don't mind that it's predictable. It's not the main event of the pay-per-view where it's like, God, there's no suspense to what's happening here. I'm okay with it. We actually got, and I've called for this for years, the Don Callis family together in the ring or backstage for a promo, and we got it. They had to use a special wide-angle lens. Don't know if anyone noticed that, to get everybody in the picture. But no, honestly, and it was the subject, like the interviewers asked, how do you manage all these people? And Callis said, we're all good. We don't need to strategize. Like there's not time for us to strategize. We don't need to because we're just that good. So at least they're kind of addressing Renee is addressing the thing everybody is thinking, which is, man, your group is getting really big. And then they kind of got their talking points. What did you think?
I mean, yeah, I think it's good. It's good on the one hand because, like you said, we've been kind of wanting to see Don Callis take a central role and like talk about all his people, and you get to see all his people except for, I suppose, Brian Cage and Trent Beretta. But notwithstanding that, I think that was a fine segment. And like you said, it underplayed some of the things going on, and even kind of led into the like Don Callis should have said, "Hey, we're not doing a lot of planning right now. We just have so many people," and maybe that's why they had the Takeshita Okada confusion at the end there.
Yeah.
On the downside, it again highlights just how many people and how low a level the people of Don Callis family are at. Just seeing them all stacked next to each other, trying to imagine any of those people other than Fletcher, Okada, or Takeshita winning a match.
Yeah. I mean, Lance Archer, I just wish they'd, define it. Lance Archer's the badass veteran enforcer who will do anything for Don Callis. Like, explore that. Why is he with him? Why, even if he doesn't win all his matches, like, what is his, what's his relationship with Don Callis? And, I was harping against, WWE promos always ending with like the catchphrase. It's like because I think wrestlers just end up kind of leaning on it too much, and it's sort of people just wait around for that. It doesn't feel authentic. It doesn't feel in the flow. Not to say don't establish a catchphrase, but when the Street Profits end every promo with "We want the smoke," it's just like yawn. There's ways to establish a catchphrase without just being that predictable. And so with Lance Archer, it's like everybody dies, and it's like, that's kind of dark. Do we need to be reminded of that while we're watching a wrestling show? Oh, you mean all your opponents die? Well, no, they don't, because you have a record that is, you win less often than batters hit doubles in Major League Baseball for at bats. I mean, his record is not good, so it just rings empty. I wish that relationship was just established more, and same with Rocky Romero. And there's two masked guys on either side, and it's like, what's their role? Like it did feel like, oh God, when they're all together. In like you said, not everybody was there. I still am in favor of it if you're going to have that big of a Don Callis family. If you're going to have that many people in it, own it and make it seem like they're a family and that they actually gather and they play off each other. But they just stood there, and Okada just looked like a guy. Like, the bloodline never just stood there. It was they put thought into it. Like, so I don't want to be critical of something I've been calling for, but I want more work to go into it than, all right, everybody line up and you're going to talk, then you're going to talk, then you're going to talk, and here's what you're going to say, and that's it. Like, let this be the start of understanding the interpersonal relations in that group beyond Takeshita and Okada. I don't know. I don't think that's asking too much to have a sense of who in that very large group, how they all feel about each other. Josh Alexander just feels like a schmuck standing back there in the background, not doing anything. And maybe he's the schmuck of the group. I don't know, but I doubt that's what they want him to be.
And also, didn't Andrade join the Callis family? I didn't see Andrade there this evening.
Limited dates?
No follow up on that at all? Did they even mention Andrade?
No, I don't think they did.
They made a really big deal about it last week.
Yeah, I don't think they did all show, now that I think of it. Derek says there's 9 active wrestlers in the Don Callis family, 400 guys: Mark Davis, Trent Beretta, Brian Cage, and Wardlow. Yeah. And did they ever on television, and I don't know the answers, maybe, did they ever address Wardlow being gone, like storyline wise, or is it out of sight, out of my mind? What are you thinking about him?
They might. I think Don Callis might have mentioned it like offhand that Wardlow's not going to be with us, but like they definitely didn't go into it or say why or what's going on.
Yeah. And I get, you make your money on the people who are healthy, and you don't want to spend a lot of time making people focusing on someone who's not going to be around. But if you want Wardlow to be a big star and you think he's going to come back and you kind of have a timeline, Don Callis could do a shout out to him pretty regularly, going, we can't wait for Wardlow to come back. And then you can like have a little storyline where Josh Alexander can't, is like rolling his eyes a little bit, or like, oh, this guy again, to set up, a match with Wardlow and Josh Alexander next August. Like, plan ahead, plant some seeds, do stuff like that. That's not the specific thing I necessarily would vote for, but I'm throwing it out there as illustrative of the types of things you could be doing. It's an illustrative example of little things you can do to add a little bit more depth to the process. By the way, point of privilege. Don Callis said in the Okada-Takeshita Brodito match that the Don Callis family is too big to fail. As a point of privilege, I'm going to take a moment here because everybody gets this wrong, almost everybody. Too big to fail does not mean that it's so big it cannot fail because it's so big. What it means is it was about bank bailouts and stuff. It means the catastrophe, if we let something this big fail, would be so devastating that we need to do everything we can to not let it fail, even if it seems like it's unfair that we're subsidizing and propping up something that frankly deserves to fail. That's what it was all about with the bailouts, and people get this wrong all the time. They think, oh, the bank was too big to fail. It couldn't fail because it was so big. They completely missed the point. No, it was going to fail unless the government stepped in and prevented it from failing, because if it did, it would have led to a complete collapse of the housing market. And so that's just my point of privilege. It is a pet peeve. Like, everybody gets the too big to fail phrase wrong, and what it origination is. Go ask ChatGPT. They'll explain it to you better than I just did. What do people get wrong about the phrase too big to fail? If you didn't understand what I said. But now, well, I'm back to wrestling.
Well, you know what, Wade, that really begs the question.
Don't do that to me.
Sorry.
Oh my God.
I can imagine a world where Don Callis, he should be saying that wrong, though. He should not understand what it means. This is the guy who introduces Hechicero by saying, "Yo soy Hechicero," which is, I don't know. I'm not a huge Hechicero fan, but I do appreciate that little, seasoning of idiocy.
Mm-hmm. Yes. But what you need then is Brian Danielson going, Don, you got that phrase wrong. That's not what it means. Like, you need somebody smart in the room, and not, like that. It's not that you have to be smart. It's so misused. You can be very smart and not know what that means, but it's a point of privilege, little message to the world. Let's see if we can correct course on completely getting wrong what that meant during that housing crisis when it really got popularized. Ramen noodle. Let's see what he says. Literally replacing the phrase "too big to fail" with "too big to care" in an email as we speak. Thanks for the timely lesson, Wade. Oh, cool. All right. That's hilarious. Very good. All right. So, what else was on the show? Okay, I want to ask about Jurassic Express. And we had a comment in the chat earlier. Jack Perry, we can't look at him as a babyface with the whole CM Punk thing. Is it a mistake to bring Jurassic Express back, or is it the right thing to do if you want to kind of leave the CM Punk thing behind? Because there is an affection for Jurassic Express. There's an AEW. They've been around long enough that there is nostalgia for it. And is that a way to kind of just go, we're done with him driving around a truck and saying he's whatever. What was he? The scapegoat. We want to move away from that because it brings up bad memories. We just want people to think about how fun it was when Jack Perry was this up and coming guy with chemistry with this guy who dresses up. Gilbert Arbalo says, I can't buy Jack Perry as a babyface anymore after the BS with Punk. Adam Kidd goes, I can't buy Jack Perry as a wrestler. Your thoughts, Joshua, on the reuniting of them, their presentation of them so far?
Yeah, so like you said, mostly it's going to appeal to early AEW nostalgia fans, particularly with the return of the song and the hand waving, which I'm not a huge fan of, but I do love that song. Mm-hmm. Independent of AEW.
Yep,
it's a classic.
Totally. Yeah.
But
I had it on a cassette mixtape, I think, back in the day.
Yeah, well, I used to sing it all the time, walking around just like The Office. People be like, "What is that song?" Like,
that's hilarious.
And then, luckily, it got almost popular, so I could explain it to people that way.
Yeah.
But so Jack Perry, he is in kind of a weird spot because on the one hand, it's hard for people to buy him as a babyface because, well, you can say because of the Punk stuff. I mean, honestly, that doesn't even bother me at this point. It's been 3-4 years, whatever it's been. And to be fair, some people are on his side about that whole situation. Mm-hmm. But in spite of that, it's hard to see him as a heel because he's just so, as Adam Kidd said, he's barely a wrestler. He's very small. He's frail. He has a pretty, just a lightweight wrestling moveset that's more akin to being a babyface underdog kind of guy. But also, he's still kind of a heel because even in this match, if you saw him when he got the pin, he just looks so damn smug.
I know. Yes.
I'm like, I think he's trying to be a face, but he looks like such a dick.
That's always been my thing with him. Is there was a people hang around with him. He's like a nice, sweet guy. Okay, but when he made fun of cauliflower ears on, I think, Kyle O'Reilly, and I'm just like, do you really not know how those are earned? Like, You don't, in professional wrestling or any context, make fun of somebody. You can make fun of a bad haircut. You can make fun of a bad choice in fashion. Cauliflower ears are earned on the mat. And he mocked it like that was a line for fans to rally behind him to go, ha, 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 look at your ears, Kyle O'Reilly. And it was like, I mean, I would just, if I did that and I went backstage and the veterans walked up to me and put their arm around me and said, kid, let me explain something to you. I would have been so ashamed. I would have just like quit. Like, I honestly, like, it was like, how can you be that palm to forehead stupid about what cauliflower ears are and think it's a babyface laugh line? And there's been other things he's done where it's just like, and so you add that to the Punk stuff, and then you add that to the follow-up, and then you add it to, he just seems like this kind of product of, like a lot of wrestlers now, to social media. You know, it's all about what can I do on social media rather than how do I help be a contributor to this team trying to draw money and actually sell tickets and tell coherent stories. And now, there's the smugness is still there, and the sweetness of this kind of underdog, like, undersized guy. It's hard to look at him that way now. So that's why I asked the question, is it smart to try to get him back into that zone because he entered a zone that wasn't really productive and actually was kind of like go away heat for a lot of people, or you can't go home again?
We're going to find out because they're trying to go home again. I don't think they're working right now, but they do have the song. That might be all they need. I mean, it's a great song.
Yep.
And like Luchasaurus has done no wrong. He's generally well liked. Everybody likes, respects him, and wants the best for him.
Yep.
I mean, this teaming with Jack might be the best for him.
Yep.
So, I mean, it can work. It might also not work. Going up against the Young Bucks will be a good first point and see how it plays out. Because, I mean, you're not supposed to.
Yep. Losing a little bit of Wi-Fi with you, Joshua. You're breaking up a little bit. Probably nothing you can do about it, but just pointing that out. If I don't respond exactly to what you say, that's probably why. Derek Mitchell says AEW screwed up Jurassic Express and the Acclaimed, and it feels like you can't recapture the moment both teams previously had. As a sidebar, the Acclaimed aren't really on Dynamite almost ever. Only occasionally, are more of a collision thing. But what do you think about them reuniting and the story, the way they're telling that story?
I don't like it. I don't think they're going to be able to recapture whatever magic they had. B, I don't know why Jerry Lynn's part of it. C, I kind of like that they don't want to get back together. I think that's kind of interesting. Not that there's any shortage of tag teams that aren't getting along, but mostly it's that even though I don't think it's a great idea, it's better than what either one of them were doing on their own. So, and I'm always for revitalizing the tag teams the best they can. So if nothing else, they're a competent tag team that can be a mid-card tag team on the way to hopefully doing something important with the tag titles at some point.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying, and I'm not against that. I feel like there's a third option for both of them. Not what they were doing as singles, not reuniting as a tag team that looks like they're just going back to something because it failed. You know, what they did failed. Like, I think there's still something with Anthony Bones where you could even being in a team with somebody different. Just a new thing where it doesn't just seem like you're just kind of stuck there. And Max Caster is like has a really quirky personality. I mean, there is a aura is not the word for him, but there's something there. Like there's something there with him.
Right.
That was really fun. I was very against the I'm the greatest thing and getting the fans to chant it and all that. That was like, it ended up being kind of fun. I thought it was leading somewhere, and it turns out there was no punchline to the build-up. Yeah, that's frustrating.
It's unfortunate.
Yes. Sean Plitch just says, I don't like bringing them back as well as the Acclaimed. Too many comedy teams. The Acclaimed had a shelf life for a reason. I did like Jurassic Express initially, but Jack is in a weird spot. Yes. And he says, Sean says the Acclaimed should not reunite at all. It's comedy. AEW has way too much comedy stuff. Derek Mitchell said 2 of the pillars, Jack Perry and Sammy, have been damaged to the point where I'm not sure they can fully recover. Sammy almost stuck his tongue out and then didn't. That was weird. Like, I don't know why. It's like, I'm good. I shouldn't do this, but it's my instinct to do it, but I'm not gonna. I'm like, why not just do it? I don't know.
Just do it. I mean, you're trying to be a heel at this point, at least. Just if you're going to be a jackass, just do it to the camera and let us hate you. It's not that hard.
Yeah. Ramen Noodle says Scapegoat was a dope heel character. I hope he keeps aspects of it. Do you think that they're heading somewhere? Like he's reuniting with Luchasaurus, but he's actually going to turn on him and like there's a dark side, hinted on, that there's a dark side. Have we seen the dark side yet?
I mean, that would be more interesting than just going back to the Jungle Boy, but with a leather jacket that they seem to be going with at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember, I think maybe, I don't know if they said it on TV or if it was an interview I saw somewhere, but he said that he was unsure about them coming back together as a tag team if they would
Yeah.
work, since they've both kind of been different characters recently. And they said going forward, they wanted to kind of continue to actually be the new versions of themselves as opposed to going all the way back. Um, Honestly, I don't think if they're doing something like that with him, they haven't tipped their hand other than him just looking so smug.
Do you think Jack Perry should be talking about his insecurity over whether this will work as they're trying to put it together? Should Tiffany Stratton be on a podcast confessing that she has imposter syndrome? Like, I know podcasts are all the rage. I mean, like, obviously, like, oh, every wrestler has one or wants to be on one, and let me confess and let me open up and let me be fully accessible. But like Mickey James told Pat McNeil on a PWTorch podcast like 15 plus years ago, we're getting too familiar with fans. Like, there should be a mystique. And when you put out there to the audience that you're overtly marketing to, I don't know if this is going to work, and here's why. Like, just no. Like, you can talk about that in your book in 8 years or
Right.
18 years. But while you're attempting to sell people on something, don't confess. I'm not sure it's going to work. And here's the reasons it might not work. Like, I don't know. I don't know if there's a way to put the genie back in the bottle but I'm going to be a person who just says you don't have to say every thought that comes into your mind on social media or in a podcast when you're trying to draw money. There's value in mystique, and you want to leave people wondering, one, convinced you're confident if you want us to pay to see you and you want us to spend our time watching you. Don't show your hand that you're insecure and think it's not good or it's not going to work. Just then don't do it, or do it with confidence.
Right. Or at least wait till it fails, then say, hey, I didn't think that was going to work.
Right.
That's
yeah.
better.
It is better. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not ideal.
What happened to Sammy Guevara, by the way? Like, what can he work with what they're doing with him?
He continues to have like maybe the most punchable face in all of wrestling. He's got that going for him.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know even what they're doing with him. He's weirdly calling himself a pillar. Like they left the pillar thing behind a long time ago.
It's like the letter jacket for the kid. Like, he's 25 years old. He wanders back to the high school game on a Friday night and thinks everyone's going to remember what he did 8 years ago. Wearing his letter jacket. It's like, didn't you go to college and get a job and maybe have a girlfriend or boyfriend or something now that you can like not lean on your letter jacket as like your badge of honor? That's what talking about pillars is now. It's like we're years past that. Everyone should have grown past that. If you're still talking about it, that is a sign you're a bit stunted. Anyway, all right. We had Hurt Syndicate and The Demand, Ricochet and Gates of Agony. Hurt Syndicate won in 17 minutes. I was watching this, and this is what I wrote in my report. It was a weird mix of wild and hard hitting, and also methodical and dragged out. And I was like, why? Why did it feel that way? Because there are a lot of big spots, but so I wrote the Hurt Syndicate are so stoic, which makes them cool, but also de-energizing. I didn't know what word to use. I'm typing like, what word? And it's like de-energizing. Like, they're baby faces. The crowd thinks they're cool. They're chanting Bobby, Bobby. And that kind of petered out, by the way. They didn't really get really behind him. That was the whole night, not a Hurt Syndicate issue, the whole crowd. But like, there's just something about them that's a little too cool for school to really get invested in them seeming like they care enough to show Jeopardy and then look like they care if they win, or because they're booked to win, so they're going to act confident they can win. There's just something with it that I'm not, it just isn't where it needs to be, but it's super close. And this match was sort of a 17-minute example of what's working and not working about Hurt Syndicate.
Yeah, starting with the 17 minutes, like it didn't need to be 17 minutes. It was like the car crash. You can do a car crash in 6-7 minutes. It's great.
Even 11 would have been fine. I mean, like, I'm not like 17 was like, wow.
It just kind of kept going. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the Hurt Syndicate, since they've come to AEW, they've always been like very over with the crowd, like very cool. Everybody goes to get behind them, but like every single time they have like a major match, it's almost always underwhelming, disappointing. Like de-energizing might be the word. It's like they never have like a fire, like they're getting in there and they're care about what they're doing. They're like, yep, we're winning. And even this, like, did they really have to get their win back because Ricochet pinned MVP on the pay-per-view? So, I mean, why did they need to win? I thought it was a step forward for them to actually beat the Hurt Syndicate. I think that was a good look because nobody beats the Hurt Syndicate. And I figure Ricochet and his group have at least some upward possibility, but they went through like 8 tables tonight, so I don't know if that's continual. And that final table spot, by the way, looked icky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even Taz was like, "Oh, I've never seen a suplex through a table like that."
Yes. Taz is giving you real reactions. Speaking of which, what do you think? I was hard on Danielson last week. I was hard on Booker T and on SmackDown post show too, for different reasons for both of them. But yeah, what do you think of Excalibur and Taz and Danielson and their chemistry? I'll just throw to you. I have thoughts, but
it's a little strange. It's not ideal. I like Taz. I always get a kick out of him most of the time. He's usually kind of helpful in the match. It's kind of weird having Taz and Danielson there, both as ex-wrestlers trying to explain what moves they're doing. Exactly. I think you really only need one of those guys.
Yeah.
And you've pointed out many.
I think Taz feels like Kirk Cousins on draft night last year for the Falcons. Like, wait, I'm the quarterback. Why are you drafting this other quarterback? Like, I'm your guy who explains moves, Matt holds, and now you bring Danielson in to basically be a babyface announcer or caller guy calling moves. Like, there's a redundancy that feels, if you're Taz, like, really? Did anyone think this through?
Right, and don't get me wrong, I was happy to get Shivani off of the commentary desk. I thought that was an upgrade, but they could have replaced him with nobody, and that would have been, I think, overall an improvement. Danielson, I like Bryan Danielson in person. I think he's a great guy. I like him a lot.
For sure.
I even like that he's like excited for a lot of things, but he's like equally excited for everything all the time.
Yeah.
And it's a little
odd. Yeah. It's like Rob Lowe's character in Parks and Rec. It's like, this is literally the best match I've seen. This is literally the best suplex I've seen. There's just a certain, consistency to it. And my issue with Danielson isn't that he's not excited about like moves and can't explain them. And I think he's talked about like the Ishii, he's setting the stage about his personality and his approach to things at the beginning of the match. He said he's one of the hardest hitters in wrestling, but he has a stoic. That's where I got the word stoic. Where did that come from when I was typing my notes later? He said Ishii has a stoic philosophy where he can absorb almost anything you throw at him until you knock him out. So it's sort of like, he just plows through until he falls over and gets pinned, which is pretty much all that happens for Ishii in every AEW match. He takes a bunch of punishment, and then he eventually loses, but he looks good until like he'll never lose until the moment he does. But what Danielson is missing, and it's unfortunate because it amplifies Excalibur's problem, which is Excalibur just talks with the same tone, and it doesn't feel like a human. It feels like a guy who should be doing PA announcing, but not taking it on an emotional roller coaster ride because his vocal emotional range isn't all that engaging or wide. And Danielson's kind of the same. He obviously doesn't have the same voice as Excalibur, but I don't feel like he is invested emotionally in the drama and the stories that are ultimately what sell tickets once you have that baseline of really good wrestlers. As you talk about, they have that. That's not a problem. And it's just not a skill set Danielson has honed yet, and I don't think there's anybody producing or leading him to get better in that way. I just don't think he's on the edge of his chair thinking about the stakes. I think he's just leaning back thinking, I like good wrestling, and I'm going to talk about a move and a little bit about a personality here and there. But he doesn't feel like this super invested. Like the podcasts and the color commentators in sports I like that I get pulled into the most are the ones who get me more excited about the drama of what's at stake in the game and the interpersonal dynamics of the teammates and the history of the wrestlers. And Danielson feels like he's just kind of kicking back, enjoying a good wrestling match. And I think he'd be better. AEW would be better served to have somebody who feels like they're reacting like something is really at stake, and it's not just about here's what the moves are meant to do in a match and here's the personality of each of the wrestlers.
Right, but also somebody that knows all the moves and is really into a good match. That seems exactly like somebody that Tony Khan thinks is best case scenario for an announcer for his show.
Yep. No, I know. And
then it checks out.
But then you have Taz sitting there going, what's my point? What point do I have now? I mean, they got Nigel, they got Taz, they got Daniels. Yeah. But then we got Callis to the mix. There's not time for much of anything. So, I mean, Danielson is fine. It's just, I want him to be great. And it doesn't, I don't get the sense that Danielson is thinking this is when I tell you, Steve Austin, when he started podcasting, he wanted to be great at podcasting. He was like, he started off, and when he interviewed somebody, he'd have the Wikipedia page in front of him, and he'd interview them, and he'd be reading off the Wikipedia page. And he talked to me about it off air. He's like, I want to get better at this. I want to be more natural. I want it to be more conversational, and it's like you could see he was self-critical and trying to improve every week, and he turned into a really good podcast interview. But if you listen to the early ones, you could tell it was a new world for him. This guy who, sold out buildings and had command of the biggest ratings on cable that wrestling had ever seen, got nervous sitting in a studio trying to interview somebody because it was out of his but he wanted to be great, and he just constantly got better. He was very self-critical and like, how can I get better? And he would talk to people about it. I want to see Danielson make that kind of progress. Like, this is a big deal to be color commentator. You have people's ears for 2.5 hours on a show. You have plenty of opportunity on AEW to communicate and enhance storylines. I want to feel like he didn't just sit down and look at a sheet of paper and go, oh, these would be good matches. I know their moves. I want to sense when he sits down that he has spent hours talking to the wrestlers and the bookers and the producers and Tony Khan and watched Collision and is bringing ideas to the table. Okay, here's something that I think I want to introduce during this match as a callback to something that happened earlier in the show that I think will help sell the pay-per-view. I want to see evidence of that. I want to see him wanting to be great at color commentary, or at the end of the show, you can go, as a viewer, I am more into Wrestle Dream now. And one of the reasons is Daniel Bryan took things that were there that I saw and enhanced them and added to it. And he's just not a guy who just showed up, looked at the book, looked at the format sheet 10 minutes before the show went on the air and said, I can wing it. And that's what I feel he's doing. And I want him to be great. And I think he could be. So there's still room for it. He's still new. I'm not going to say everyone's saying he's great. He's great calling a pay-per-view match. That's really good, but that's not the job of a color commentator on a weekly TV show. And let's hold him to the standard that it's a different environment on weekly TV.
Yeah, and it's a shame because, like, sometimes those threads are there, and the announcers just are not pulling on them. And then we get on a show like this, you got like Rob Noodle saying, yeah, no, it's this, and that. And I'm like, well, it'd be great if one announcer would say this, or at least that.
Yep.
Because, like I said, the stories, people are always saying, like, AEW doesn't do stories. They do. They just don't, like, massage them and, like, highlight them the way they should and continually push them. It's like, there's a story, it ends at this match, and that's all you need to know.
Yep.
And it's unfortunate, like you said, if it would be great if Danielson or, I don't know, anybody would put in the work, decide that they want to be the best they can be at that, and make it happen. It'd be better for the show and the fans, and it'd be better for every single person involved.
And I want to have a sense that Brian and Taz have talked about what different roles are we going to have? How do we not step on each other? And Taz and I want evidence that Taz is going to go, you know what? I'm going to get irritated by you. And I'm going to, because Taz has an edge to him. He's been a heel. Well, Danielson's been a heel, but he did it because it was fun to be a heel, not because he actually, thought it would be, he understood whether it was good or bad for business and if anyone would actually boo him based on what he was doing. But it's more fun to be a heel, so let me go be a heel. And Daniels, he's a nice guy, but I just think he's made some selfish decisions that didn't work well over time so he could have fun. So I'd like to have a sense that he and Taz have figured out, is Taz going to take a more edgy approach, defend heels in a certain way, but have a constitution that's consistent that Danielson pushes back on, or vice versa. Like there should be something where they can kind of go back and forth a little bit. I don't want it to feel manufactured, like they're just making it up each week, but there should be something at the core of each of their philosophies as commentators that they discuss, and it becomes apparent that they're providing a different perspective and a rational perspective, not a cartoonishly, here's a evil heel commentator, here's a pure babyface one. But I don't sense anything like that's happening. And it's just that real estate of commentary during a 2-hour wrestling show, it's too valuable and too important to have someone just kind of showing up and going, I'm Bryan Danielson, I had great matches and I know these moves. And I want to see evidence of more than that, Joshua. I don't think that's asking too much. And he's nice and he had great matches, but it's time for him to someone figure out how to make him really an asset to the show.
I mean, I don't think you're wrong. I think you're probably right. I think he probably shows up roughly before the show starts, sits down, looks at a piece of paper, and says, "Oh, these are the matches. Great." And then he just does what he thinks is good for the matches. I doubt he puts more thought into it. I just, like you said, I wish he would.
Yeah. I want him to really, as the Demand and Hurt Syndicate are wrestling, I want to be like, you know what? They needed all 17 of those minutes because Danielson was talking about Ricochet. He was talking about the history of Gates of Agony. He's talking Gates of Agony. He talked in like he's bringing this like wrestler's insight into why Ricochet's acting the way he does, why he surrounded himself with Tonga and Khan and like, I mean, like just evidence of like he spent the whole week. He has so much to say. There's not enough time to say it. In provide insight into that. And I mean, there's places they don't want to go, you know, with Jack Perry and, you know, remind people of CM Punk. I mean, you don't want to go there all the time, but even like Kyle O'Reilly, it's like, you know, Dennis can be like, yeah, Kyle and I have a lot of similarities on our career paths, and he's done more tag team wrestling than I did. He tried singles wrestling. I know in his heart, that's something he wants to succeed at. And this is a chance for it to happen. Like those personal stories that you take a grain of truth and then you make the match more interesting in the process, but you bring that knowledge. And there's, you know, so much history with O'Reilly that Danielson could be talking about, and there's similarities and differences in their paths. And I don't know. I just want him to be more excited I want every AEW announcer to be more excited to bring new people in and add depth and layering and nuance to things. And I just think people are just kind of showing up and doing what comes easiest, path of least resistance.
Yeah, and I think that's not even just the announcers. I think that's probably half the wrestlers, people in their promos, same thing.
Yeah.
They're showing up the day of, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Like you always say, like when the bloodline was like on fire, they were thinking all week about what they were going to say on.
Their group text threads, you know, probably like 17 times a week they were in like back and forth coming up with ideas probably. Or at least it came across it. Maybe Danielson, Joshua, maybe he spends all afternoon thinking about what he's going to say. And this is what we're getting. I mean, I'm not going to say he doesn't put in the work. I want evidence on TV of work being put in. So I'm not saying he doesn't do it. I'm saying on television, there's no evidence of it. And that with the bloodline, there was evidence of it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. But probably he's. I mean, I think he has. I think he workshops and spitballs with Tony Khan ideas for big picture story arcs. That's a different skill set than, you know, color commentary and what he's bringing to things. Anything else from the show you want to bring up, Joshua?
I just want to reiterate. I know we went off on a couple things. Like for the most part, like I enjoyed tonight's show. Like I thought it was it was 2.5 hours, but I thought it flowed pretty quickly. It went by. At no point I think it was dragging, other than the 17-minute table bonanza.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, again, I was just saying, like so much happened, but also I can't think of a single other thing that happened. I know other stuff happened. Like there was probably a match we haven't mentioned.
The thing is like what I don't want us to get caught up on, and I want this podcast to be different than most other podcasts, which is I really enjoyed the show. It was a fun 2.5 hours. There was good wrestling, good moves, and that was a funny thing that happened. Anybody can do that. Like I want the podcast to be, it was a good show. Did it accomplish the mission of what a 2.5 hour show on primetime television should accomplish when you're trying to sell a pay-per-view a week and a half from now, and you're trying to build stars and you're trying to sell more tickets, not fewer, 6 months from now? And that's the approach I take. It's not all about, was it a good show in the sense of that was my time well spent for 2.5 hours watching it. That's an easy call. Anybody who's watched wrestling for a week, a month, or 20 years can say, did I enjoy it or not enjoy it? And I think it's important we express that. I mean, that should be like, sometimes we enjoy it, sometimes we don't, more than others, less than others. That's a valid talking point. But I think what gives us 2 hours to talk about, you know, why we spend close to 2 hours talking about this is what the ingredients are there, but what's not quite being done that can take full advantage of all the sacrifice and hard work and this platform that they have. I don't take for granted this can last forever. And I don't think you can. I'm worried about them being able to create stars when they have crowds of 3,000 people. Like I said that years ago when they were drawing 8 and 6. I'm like, when it gets down to 5 and 4 and 3, there's going to be there's that kind of tipping point of we can't even create stars anymore because they won't look like stars in front of small crowds and small buildings. And so the stuff I'm saying now is it's different wrestlers, different show. But a lot of the stuff that I said 6 years ago, if you listen back, are things that have come home to roost in terms of they're paying a price for focusing too much on certain things and not others. And I don't want to just say it's baked in, and as long as Tony Khan thinks the matches were good, that then he should get Booker of the Year. There's so much more that can be being done right now to make these shows not just enjoyable, but also really effective.
Right, and I agree with that entirely. Like me personally, like I backed into AEW from watching New Japan. Like, so I'm going to put more emphasis on in-ring work than a lot of people. And AEW for me caters directly to that. But I could just say these were all good matches, so who cares about everything else? That's one way to look at it. But it could, even if they're all good matches, there's like 100 different things that could make it better.
Yeah.
Even if the match couldn't be better, everything
Yep.
around it definitely could be better. And yeah, I think it's just kind of naive just to say, well, they were all good matches and I enjoyed it, so it was a good show. I don't see what you guys are bitching about for 2 hours.
Right. And I mean, I know there's people who just sit back and enjoy it. It's like, well, a lot of companies have gone out of business that I've covered by having the attitude of, our audience should just sit back and enjoy it. I've seen enough success and failure, and trends things that trigger upward trends and things that cause downward trends. And when I watch a show like this, and really any wrestling show any week, there's some are more illustrative than others, and helpful than others in terms of giving examples of what could be done. And obviously, I had, lots of praise for Hangman and Joe, in particular, on the show. Where the title feels important, the wrestlers seem serious. There's not a bunch of meta stuff, and they're talking about each other's history, and they feel like real grounded people, and they're not yelling just to yell. So there's a lot good in that opening segment, and more of that. But me being hard on Danielson and Booker T on commentaries because I believe announcing is very important, and I believe they're both smart people who are not being produced or steered. And Booker has a long track record. Danielson is a short one. So there's a lot of differences, but I want Danielson to be great at this job. And the early weeks he's just okay. It's like, it's fun having my butt. I don't like it. Like Excalibur. Oh, look at that move. It's like, you're not sitting on a couch with your buddies drinking a beer, smoking pot going, whoa, look at that. I can't believe what the other day. You're supposed to sell that it hurt and you're worried, not, wow, that was a good spot. And Danielson just seems like a guy who likes good wrestling, and he's going to point out the moves. I want them to be in the business of selling the product, not just reacting to it like fans. And, but that's an ongoing problem, an ongoing issue, I would say. One thing for certain, says Derek Mitchell, Paige against Joe will be an excellent match. Yeah, I think they're going to leave it out there.
Almost certainly.
I do. And I think Joe wants to have a better match than AJ Styles has with John Cena, and he should. But Cena had a good match with Cody. So I like the back-to-back weekends with those two stars who are so intertwined, even if their paths have gone very different directions since they left TNA.
Well, that and Paige and Joe will be all the much better match based on what they laid down tonight. The great promo, the focused storyline, and the stakes of the world title. I mean, if it was just a random match on Dynamite, it would be a good match. But what they did in the opening of tonight is what's going to make it a possibly great match. Yeah.
No, that's part of what makes a great match is the story you tell leading into it and what people feel the stakes are afterwards. There's great basketball games in the NBA in December that are not remembered, and there's less great matches that happen in May that people do remember because the stakes are higher and everything is clear in the story. There's a whole story being told. So Ramen Noodle says, it's very easy to see why an honest wrestling journalist would go over AEW with a fine-tooth comb. I find it a little weird when fans get overly obsessed with what will, quote, draw money. Just my take. Most fans can watch it however they want. Like, there are people who want to watch and think about wrestling because it's an escape and they just want to enjoy it, see their favorite wrestler do something cool. And that's great, but that's not what we do here at the Torch, like as our primary thing, dating back decades. Like it is about what's best for business. Triple H kind of co-opted it from us and our ilk. When trying to demean Daniel Bryan as heels, that he couldn't be a draw and a poster boy. But we've been saying that literally decades before Triple H and Stephanie were saying as the authority, what's best for business? That's how we evaluate wrestling, because we track it kind of like a business journal. What are the trends and what's causing it? And I find that super interesting, and I think a lot of fans kind of graduate to that over time. People read comic books as kids because they like a character, they like the stories, but then later they kind of get into the business side, like what's selling, who's writing it. Did someone, jump from Marvel to DC? Is there, whatever, they start critiquing the art form, the craft, and happens sports fans, you watch sports because you have a player you'd like when you're 8 or 12 or 14, and then you start listening to podcasts going, why did that GM make that trade? Why did that coach not do that substitution? Why did that player shoot the 3-point shot instead of driving to the basket when he had a much better shot to go to the line and get 2 points and they only needed 2 points? You graduate to that, and that's what we're trying to do. That's why we have, demographically probably a low number of just people who are fanboys for either brand, listening and watching us.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And I mean, it's a disingenuous argument I think you can get into on the internet in less cultured chat rooms that,
yeah.
well, that show you like is not good because it doesn't draw as much money as X show, which is
a
disingenuous
or
argument.
Seth Rollins, look at my paycheck, Will Ospreay.
Yeah, that doesn't make him a better wrestler than Will Ospreay. There are a million things about Seth Rollins that are actually probably better than Ospreay, but that's a pointless argument.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Who's making more money is definitely not going to settle it.
Yep. Ramen Noodle says, for sure, that commentary is why I'm an 8-year VIP member. Keep up the good work. Seriously. Thank you, Ramen. Even if I trashed you earlier, it's very rudely took shots at you. No, I'm kidding. Derek Mitchell says, as much as I criticize AEW, I want them to get better and tighten up their product, just like WWE and TNA. I feel AEW fans can be a bit hypersensitive, and it's okay to critique their product. Exactly. Or go listen to someone who doesn't. You can go find someone who's going to say all good things about AEW. If that's for you, good. Then do it.
Right.
Yeah. All right, cool. Joshua, thank you so much. Blast having you on.
Absolutely.
Love talking wrestling with you. We'll do this again soon. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. VIP membership is how you can support what we do and the way we do it. PWTorch.com/GoVIP. We'll give you full details on how to become a VIP member, and you can dive into our history of covering wrestling. You'll see stuff I wrote in the late 1980s if you go VIP. We have an ad-free website, ad-free, commercial-free podcasts, VIP exclusive content written in podcast, and many ways to get our podcast through Spotify, Patreon, Apple Podcasts, apps on Android and iOS, and streaming right from our website. Check out full details. Go VIP, PWTorch.com/GoVIP. Thanks, everybody, and we'll talk to you next time.